Another day, another FUD article. Richard Hart, the founder of HEX and PulseChain, the controversial mystery man. Nobody can stop talking about him. Haters, supporters, whether you love him or hate him, he's living rent-free in everybody's mind. It's all anyone wants to talk about in crypto. So what is it today, guys? The Finnish police seize luxury watches worth $2.6 million from HEX founder Richard Hart. Let's see how many actual facts are in this article. How many primary sources? Let's try to find some needles of truth in the haystack of smoke and mirrors and deception. Because everybody on Twitter still has nothing better to talk about. They still hate watch every single move this Richard Hart guy makes. Richard Hart's the founder of PulseChain, the founder of HEX, by the way. For people that don't know, one of the most controversial crypto founders out there. But also one of the only guys telling people to get their coins off of exchanges and calling out other scams back in the day like FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, all these other scams that lost people millions, if not billions of dollars. This really happened, and he's still out here. Some people say he's on the run. Some people say he never even got served in Finland at all. There's all kinds of articles. They're very mysterious and suspicious facts. The whole case around him is fishy. All right, on one hand, the SEC is suing him for securities fraud, but judging by the latest moves of Interpol going after him for an alleged assault charge and tax evasion, the assault one is mind-blowing because that's just totally out of left field, totally out of character for this guy. What's a billionaire doing out there just walking around punching 16-year-olds in the face? There's a lot of facts that we can actually prove wrong, and there's very little that we can prove right so far. Stick with me, watch this whole video. You're going to get my take on the story, guys. You're going to get my take on the story. Now, this picture of watches, it's a picture from Shutterstock. We all know Richard Hart's watches, okay? He's been flexing his watches since before he even made HEX. Okay, guys, if you were following this guy in 2017, when he was a Bitcoin maxi, talking about Bitcoin only, before HEX was even an idea in his head, he was flexing his watches and trying to, he's just kind of like that. And if people find that distasteful, I get it. All right, people are jealous. People get so triggered that he wears a Gucci tracksuit and walks around twerking in a Gucci tracksuit. That's the only video people like to share still today. The guy hasn't live streamed in years, and people are still sharing his video of him shopping in a Prada store, which he claims was for eyeballs, for marketing. Whether or not you believe that, I believe it. I just also happen to believe that maybe there's better options of marketing that wouldn't get, the feds after you. But here we are. So what are they claiming today, guys? Finland's national broadcaster seized 20 luxury watches. Okay. They seized them from where? Residents in Espoo. Espoo. Now, we don't even know if he actually lives there. Nobody actually knows his official address because there's no source or record that's ever been proven. Okay, it's just articles and crypto news. Guys, just for the record. Journalistic integrity is hard to come by. A lot of people just want headlines. And it's kind of just like an extension of Twitter, you know what I mean? And just today, too, we've got hilarious back and forth between Charles Hoskinson, the Cardano founder, whose coin is also down 80%, by the way, talking crap about Richard Hart, getting the facts all mixed up and just saying that he's a bad guy, long story short. And so everybody's going after Charles Hoskinson online today. He basically poked the hornet's nest, and that's what you don't want to do if you don't have all the facts straight, especially online, the social engagement that you get. Good or bad, from these PulseChain lunatics. These HEX people out there, they call themselves Hexicans. They're going to show you why you're wrong, if you are wrong. So, Hoskinson said the SEC's case will not end well. Oh no, those are fighting words, okay? Because if you're rooting for this Richard Hart guy to fail, whose team are you really on? Let me just ask you something. For all the rebel crypto holders, all the cypherpunk badasses that were supposed to be anti-authoritarian, now we're all cheering for the SEC and Interpol. If you're cheering for the three-letter agencies and daddy government to go after this guy, most of the guys wanting Richard Hart to fail have never even bought the HEX token, never even purchased the PulseChain token. And on the other hand, you look at the people that have bought PulseChain HEX and PulseX and all these other coins that people are making on the PulseChain network. They're not the ones complaining. They're the ones defending their bags because the SEC is suing anybody and everybody because they missed FTX and they missed Celsius and they missed BlockFi and they're embarrassed. And you got to understand the SEC is playing a different game. Okay, they're playing the status quo game. Keep the matrix running. Everybody stay in your pod. We're going to try to apply the Howey test and some of these old, which by the way, HEX fails the Howey test, but they're going to try to apply some old-fashioned laws using a 100-year-old framework to a brand new asset class that they don't even have jurisdiction over. Not to mention Richard Hart doesn't even live in the USA, which was a big topic actually at the motion to dismiss hearing in Brooklyn. And so you'd think the real enemy would be these corrupt authorities, wouldn't you? And the people that hate the loudest, I covered this in my previous video, the people that hate the loudest often shilled projects that went to almost zero, if not totally zero. You know, Alex Mashinsky talked a lot of shit about Richard Hart. He's going to jail because he actually did lose people's money and went to zero with Celsius, the founder. So look at all this, guys. You can read all the headlines. Where in the world is Richard Hart? People are acting like he was evading the SEC when they hadn't even really served him. They had to invoke the Hague Convention to, you know, serve somebody across overseas, somebody who hasn't lived in the USA for 2 decades. And I don't know if they actually did formally serve him, but clearly at this point, his lawyers have acknowledged that he's not on the run. Like, he's addressing the issue head on and he wants to win. So looks like he's not even going to settle with them. He's going to go ride or die, just probably invoking the First Amendment if he has to. In addition to jurisdiction and failing the Howey test and all these other arguments. And by the way, his legal team, guys, they're called Quinn Emanuel. They're one of 4 legal teams that he's hired. 11 different lawyers backing him up. And they're also rated the most feared law firm in the world. Do with that information what you will. They also back up guys like Elon Musk or famous people like Wesley Snipes. So everybody, if this is news from like a year ago, right? 2023, controversial HEX founder evades government. It's like, it's all about framing here, right? This appeal to authority is what should reveal the hypocrisy of crypto holders. They just want their bags to go up. They don't care if they have to beg on their knees to BlackRock to pump their Bitcoin bags because that's the only way it's pumping. Or for nation states like America or somebody else to start having a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And they're only saying this because Bitcoin is 16 years old. You know, in the early days of Bitcoin, people called it the cult of Satoshi. People still say that it's only used for drug financing and illegal activity. There will always be a hateful side because they don't want the revolution to happen. They don't want the peaceful, technical revolution. It's just code, guys. HEX is code, PulseChain's code. It can't be shut off. And this code runs with or without Richard Hart. He's not pulling any strings here. He doesn't control the code. Okay, so people are buying and selling this stuff. And other people, like 3-letter alphabet agencies, are going after this guy. And you ask yourself, well, certainly the government would always have my best interest at heart, wouldn't they? Well, then why is your purchasing power 4 times less than it was 2 years ago? This is what crypto is invented to solve. Putting the money back in your own hands, giving you enough gains to outpace inflation. If you can hold for, 3 or 4 or 5 years. A full cycle. Then all these so-called, blockchain purists, Bitcoin maxis, they're all rooting for this guy to fail. So according to the SEC, Hart is believed to be in Finland. And you read these articles and you're like, where's the actual fact? He's believed to be in Finland. He could live in Switzerland. I remember back in the day, everybody thought he lived in Switzerland. And when you see the history of people like Interpol, or, going after guys like Julian Assange or Edward Snowden, or all these guys that, what did they really do? What was their crime? It was exposing the establishment. It was waking people up out of the matrix. Right? So you gotta understand what the game the SEC is playing here. They want to climb the corporate ladder. All they want to do is go to work, feed their families. They're perfectly fine people, and they do catch bad guys a lot of the times. But in this case, and a lot of these crypto cases, like Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, Gemini, they've been suing all of these companies recklessly without even telling them which rules they specifically broke. Just, hey, you broke some rules, we're going to sue you now. And for them, think about it from the SEC side, right? These employees, they just want to get a win like a trophy, to put on their resume, to say, hey, look at me, I caught all the bad guys, and to keep the cog in the machine spinning. But crypto, we're making this new game, we're making this new financial system, and they are going to fight you somewhere along the way. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Or so Gandhi said. SEC informs the court that Richard Hart has been served. Okay, cool. The SEC finally served Richard. Again, this was from a year ago. This ongoing stuff, these court proceedings take a long time, and the motion to dismiss was so strong that the Interpol FUD is coming at a time where the judge has to make up her mind in the next 2 weeks, basically, or 3 weeks maybe, by the end of the month, on whether or not she's going to dismiss the case fully, partially, or not. And because their case looks so weak, I wouldn't be surprised if basically the SEC tapped their friends at the FBI, told them to go after Interpol. Because when you look at the Interpol FUD, And you look at this lawyer, shout out to Nuclear Herbs on Twitter. This guy's a retired lawyer digging into the case like a common sense individual. He says, normally when you want to look into more information behind allegations such as Interpol red notices, which are a big deal, or they should be, if Interpol's telling the truth. In the USA, you would just walk in the front door of the courthouse, request a criminal complaint, and walk out and tell you everything you need to know. With Finland, they're giving him the runaround. Not a single journalist or media outlet that's published any article about Richard has seen a source document. Because the one detective in Finland that's publishing this stuff on Interpol, says there are no public documents available. Here's the email. There are no public documents, so I can't give you any source material. The Finnish state did not initiate the case. They're only a party to the case. There's no private entity behind this. Please get in touch with the FBI office. So it sounds like to me, and we don't know, but we're going to get more info as time goes on. The drama never ends, right, guys? It seems like the FBI is throwing a Hail Mary attempt to try to throw some dirt on Richard's name right before their buddies at the SEC potentially lose. And they're like, well, maybe if we don't have jurisdiction over him, we can make up some claims and get him with the FBI and get him with some Interpol connections that we have. Interpol, watch the Vice documentary. Watch the 60 Minutes documentary about Interpol, about how it's been weaponized to basically be used against certain people, including like Chinese and Russian billionaires that are just shaking the system up a little bit, rocking the boat too much. So what's the deal here, guys? There's this Richard Hart character out here who's always talking about freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of thought, always very anti-censorship. Always sticks to the original ideals of why crypto was invented, removing middlemen. But you've got nothing but bad press. Not like it really matters in a bear market, right? You can have good press or bad press. Look at Chainlink, still down 80%. It's got all the good press in the world. Then you got PulseChain, down, 70%. PulseX down 80%. All the negative news in the world. So at the end of the day, we are all kind of beholden to the greater crypto cycles, the macro. Only so much we can control, but if you're interested in getting the truth, realize that there's all this negative press out here. SEC struggles to serve Richard Hart in multi-billion-dollar crypto case. Now, this is Bitcoin.com. This is Roger Ver, so we could expect this website to be a little more objective. And you can see right here, it is a little bit objective, because he's right about this. Whoever wrote this, the next step in this legal proceeding could be crucial in determining how the court case moves forward and underscores legal hurdles in prosecuting international cases. Not only that, but it can set legal precedent for people doing business or people launching code in the USA and worldwide. It's like launching publishing software. This is like back in the day, back in the Middle Ages, when the church was going after the printing press. The Dutch were trying to import printing presses, and the church said, no, we can't just have everybody writing the Bible. We need to be the keepers of the truth. Now, I know that was a long time ago, 500 years ago, 1400s, but this literally is a repeat. History rhymes. Right, this is like the church trying to stifle the printing press. So what's the real problem? It's that PulseChain and HEX and the community refuses to back down to the crypto establishment or to the mainstream SEC establishment. And for every hater out there, there's a hardcore community believer that's building something decentralized on top of PulseChain, whether it just be a stupid meme coin or an actual technical innovation product. So it's not just about the watches, guys. The community believes the Hexagon, crazy loon birds over there, just like the early Bitcoin guys and the early Ethereum guys believed in what they were doing. They believed in decentralized tech and putting money in your hands, not to be inflated permanently, having your purchasing power stolen from you, and your rent and your groceries and your gas costs 10 times more than it did a couple years ago. But you're not making nearly that much to make up for it. So what's scarier, guys? This man with a bunch of watches who so-called stole your money. This man who had watches before he launched HEX. He's bragging about his cars and his watches before PulseChain, before PulseX, and after PulseX. But what's scarier? Fat Gucci tracksuit wearing, freedom speaking developer? Or the SEC trying to take all your power away from you? Realize what's happening here. You're being psyoped. Okay, people have never had less trust in these centralized systems. People are getting caught up in these Twitter beefs. People are getting caught up in stuff that doesn't matter. They're forgetting the real enemy. Don't let them distract you, okay? That's what they want. They want to psyop you into thinking Richard's the bad guy, when it's not Richard's lifestyle that's the problem. It's us letting corrupt governments gain more and more power without doing anything to fight back. At the end of the day, you either believe us or you don't. You're either with us or you're not. Part of the movement, part of the tribe. It's growing all the time. Crazy social engagement on YouTube and on social media. Go make a post about PulseChain if you're not already a PulseChain fan. Or you can go like Charles Hoskinson and say, there's no innovation on PulseChain. Yeah, bro. Because having the best tech is what makes number go up, right? A lot of people think that. That's another fallacy. So don't be a Charles Hoskinson. All right, don't be this guy. And remember what team you're fighting on, guys. We're anti-authority here. This little pencil-neck dork, part of the Finnish government. Actually, I don't even know who this is. Maybe he's the guy that wrote the article about it or something. These are the guys you're up against. Okay. These are the soy boys that we're up against. Shout out to your friend Tommy. Go follow this guy. Great follow. So Richard Hart, probably going to be at the SEC sooner or later. And then he can pull an Andrew Tate. He can start suing all these guys, all these companies and articles for libel and slander. He can. He probably will. The only reason that you don't see him publicly is because his lawyers advised him not to. Like any sensible lawyer would do. Is that if you have a case going on, you shouldn't be speaking publicly because anything you say can be added, as in adding extra risk to the whole thing. So we're on the tail end of it. And again, this is just like a Hail Mary, right? Like the SEC is praying to God they can throw something. They can find something on Richard Hart. And again, we don't even know what actually happened. So, the Finnish government stole his watches and they took a watch picture from Shutterstock. And do we even know if he lives here? Where are the sources, bro? Demand better information. Demand primary sources. Stop taking all this Photoshop garbage out of context by randos on Twitter. I've seen it all the time. In the early days of HEX, there was like the Panama stuff where people lied and made up the fact that, he did something shady in Panama. The truth was, he got robbed in Panama by the Panamanian government. They took his house. Then they tried to say, Richard Hart, he sold fake longevity supplements. Which, you look into it, never actually happened. He volunteered for the SENS Longevity Research Foundation, and that's it. He didn't sell anything. People just make shit up on the internet, and other poor souls actually fall for it and believe it. So use your critical thinking out there, guys. Remember which team you're on, and what kind of person are you? Are you the kind of person that fights and stands up for what you believe in, that defends your bags? Because I think a lot of the non-believers, a lot of the scared paper hand soy boys, they've hopefully exited by now. Look, I know it's not fun to have the three-letter agencies coming after you. It's not fun to be falsely accused of stuff. But as far as I see it, you're either bold, courageous, standing up for what you believe in, standing up for decentralized software, code. You don't even have to like Richard. But you should understand that they can't take away your bags. They can't stop you from buying them, can't stop you from selling them. Or you're the kind of person who's a hateful soy boy, who's probably had a lot of failures and insecurities in life, and that wants Big Daddy government to win. Not very cool. Not very cash money of you, bro. Not very cryptocurrency cypherpunk at all. So pick a side. Like, subscribe, share the video, leave a comment. I'll be covering the story and everything else that comes up, giving you the truth about what's going on in crypto. See you on the next video.